good evening, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time zone you're in. Welcome to Changes. This is usually conversations between authors, but today I'm having a conversation with all of you, I hope, and myself. And anyone who wants to put in a question or a comment or make a request for a reading, please come to the Google event page on Google Plus and put it in, and I will see it on this wonderful interface called the Comment Tracker. My name is Sally Ember, Ed.D. This is episode 38 of Changes, and this is August 19th, 2015. I am going to be 61 in 3 days, and I am grateful for my life and grateful to still be alive when so many people I know younger than this have died. Many close friends, many relatives, many people I care about deeply, and I'm sure for you too, are no longer with us. And so for this week and for every week that I have a birthday week, I think of all the people who don't make it this far, and I wish them well, and I praise the days that I still have. And because of that, I decided to have a birthday week show when my guest unexpectedly canceled. I decided not to cancel. So I'm going to be reading from some poetry that moves me. I'm going to be reading from my Spanner series, science fiction romance series, that I have now put volume 3 into the hands of beta readers, and I'm almost halfway through volume 4. Volumes 1 and 2 are already out. I'm also going to be hopefully taking questions and having time to listen to all of your comments and respond to them. I can see we have one visitor right now. I'm going to bring her in and let you see what she's writing. Her name is Dr. Margaret Aranda. She'd like to be on my show later this year. I hope to have her on. And she says, I like this outlet, the hangout style for authors. Being a medical doctor, all of my training is so structured and intellectual with almost no conversational laughing. So I must compliment you on the friendliness I see. Thank you, Margaret. And yes, friendliness is a big part of this. Ease, conversation and discussion, not interviews. I tell everyone my show is not an author interview. I think those are fine, and I'm glad people have them, and I like to be on them when I get a chance. But my show is different because I like to have a conversation with people who happen to be authors and bloggers and writers of other kinds. Today I'm going to read to you one of my poems that helped me get through my undergraduate years from Theodore Roethke. This is the cover of the book. I still have the actual paper cover. I'm going to bring it across my camera here. This is what he looked like when they took the picture of him for this. Theodore Roethke's collected poems. And I'm going to read to you from 2 of them. One of them just a piece of a poem, and the other one I'm going to read the whole poem. The first one is the whole poem called In a Dark Time. And, you know, a lot of people are starting college right now, and for many people that is a very hard time. Not just leaving home, but being on our own, figuring out who we are in the absence of everything we've known up to that point, our characters, our status, our neighborhoods, our families, all the ways we orient ourselves in space and time with sports and music and academics are all ripped away, or we give them away to start afresh. And it can be very daunting and difficult. So this poem is how I got through my college years. Thank you, Theodore Roethke, for In a Dark Time, from his poetry book called Sequence, Sometimes Metaphysical. In a dark time, the eye begins to see. I meet my shadow in the deepening shade. I hear my echo in the echoing wood, a lord of nature weeping to a tree. I live between the heron and the wren, beasts of the hill and serpents of the den. What's madness but nobility of the soul, at odds with circumstance? The day's on fire. I know the purity of pure despair. My shadow pinned against a sweating wall. That place among the rocks, is it a cave or a winding path? The edge is what I have. A steady storm of correspondences, a night flowing with birds, a ragged moon, and in broad day, the midnight comes again. A man goes far to find out what he is. Death of the self in a long, tearless night, all natural shapes blazing on natural light. Dark, dark my light, and darker my desire. My soul, like some heat-maddened summer fly, keeps buzzing at the sill. Which eye is I? A fallen man, I climb out of my fear. The mind enters itself, and God the mind. And one is one, free in the tearing wind. Isn't that awesome? He was awesome. He also suffered greatly from depression, repeated visits to sanitariums, is what they called them then, and he has a great set of couplets called Lines Upon Leaving a Sanitarium that I quote freely from throughout my life, partly because they're funny and partly because they're just so true. And here they are. Self-contemplation is a curse that makes an old confusion worse. Recumbency is unrefined and leads to errors in the mind. Long gazing at the ceiling will, in time, induce a mental ill. The mirror tells some truth, but not enough to warrant constant thought. He who himself begins to loathe grows sick in the flesh and spirit both. Dissection is virtue when it operates on other men. So those are his couplets. Now, of course, he writes in the he. He's a child of the 40s and 50s, and that's what they did then, but you can change the gender to suit yourself. The other part of a poem I want to read is from a much longer poem of his, and I'm not going to read all of it because it didn't all resonate with me the way this one part did. It's called Words for the Wind, and I'm reading from part 3, the last stanza. What times my heart? I care. I cherish what I have. I cherish what I have had of the temporal. I am no longer young, but the winds and waters are. What falls away will fall. All things bring me to love. Thank you, Theodore. That's what we get from you today. And if anyone is listening and has any comments or questions on those poems or wants to tell me what poetry has helped guide you, or song lyrics or music or anything else that you've been listening to, reading, or being in connection to that's helped you get through portions of your life, I'm interested. I think all writers are interested in how people get through difficult times and how we work through different aspects of our psyches and of ourself. And while you're all thinking of what you want to put up for that, I'm going to read to you from some poems that got me through my young adult and young mother and teenage boy mothering years. This book came out in 1989 when my son was 9. She Rises Like the Sun, Invocations of the Goddess by contemporary American women poets, and it has an incredible lineup of poets in this great book. And I'm not going to read many of them. I'm only going to read part of the first one and part of the second one. The first one is by a poet named Elsa Gidlow or Gidlow. I'm not sure which one, but it is on my event page, called A Creed for Free Women. And she has an asterisk next to the word women, and her asterisk goes to a little footnote that says, and such men as feel happy about it. And I think if she were writing it now, she would say, and anyone who feels happy about it, avoiding the whole binary gender topic completely. You'll also notice in her writing, probably to counterbalance people like Theodore Roethke and everyone else in the 40s and 50s and 60s, she writes all in the feminine instead of all in the masculine, but you can translate to have it work for you. The second and third stanzas are what I'm reading of this poem, A Creed for Free Women. As no free-growing tree serves another or requires to be served, as no lion or lamb or mouse is bound or binds, no plant or blade of grass nor ocean fish, so I am not here to serve or be served. I am child of every mother, mother of each daughter, sister of every woman, and lover of whom I choose or chooses me. As a bisexual feminist, I find a lot that resonates for me in those words, and maybe you'll find something for yourself in there too. This, as my birthday week, I'm so lucky that both of my sisters are coming from out of town to visit with me and my mother here in St. Louis. One is coming all the way from Los Angeles, and one is coming from Chicago, and I'm so excited to have them here, and we're going to be laughing and talking and very glad to be together because we don't get to be together all that often. So the second poem is from a longer poem by Marge Piercy, who's also a science fiction and fiction writer as well as a poet. I think she writes plays too. She was a great inspiration to me for many years, probably still is. And this poem is The Sabbath of Mutual Respect. And I'm actually going to read just the last stanza. This is very relevant right now for those of us living in the United States and many other parts of the world where women's rights are threatened or ripped away or constantly being eroded. Praise our choices, sisters, for each doorway open to us was taken by squads of fighting women who paid years of trouble and struggle, who paid their wombs, their sleep, their lives, that we might walk through these gates upright. Doorways are sacred to women, for we are the doorways of life, and we must choose what comes in and what goes out. Freedom is our real abundance. So think about that, especially if you're an American and you're going to be voting in a little over a year. Please consider women's rights and give them all a lot of consideration, not just the ones that feel easy to you. Okay, so my last poet that I'm going to refer to has been carrying me through my later years and probably will carry me through all of them, because that's the kind of writing she does. She's also a Buddhist, which really resonates with me since I've been practicing Buddhism since 1996. But also she's just an incredible nature lover, and a lot of her poems, if not all of them, have some very strong anchor in the natural world. This is from new and selected poems, so it's got a lot from different books she's written. Pulitzer Prize winner, by the way. And the first one, I'm sure you'll recognize the last couplet in particular. It's called The Summer Day. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean. The one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I should have been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? I think we should each wake up every day and ask ourselves that question. Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? And then answer it by what you do that day, right? One of our guests today, Dr. Margaret Aranda, is answering and responding to some of the poetry I've been written, and she says, since I really love the Lord and have been bedridden for 9 years, I just wanted to note that this song has inspired me to become more active and just feel alive and motivated. So she puts a link in, a YouTube link, but she doesn't tell us the name of the song. Well, I can't go to the link right now, Margaret, so if you want to tell us the name of the song so we can refer to it by talking about it, that would be great. Otherwise, viewers and readers and listeners can go and find that link later on the Google Plus event page for episode 38 of Changes, conversations usually between authors, but today just with me, the host, Sally Ember, Ed.D, and some poets and some pieces from my own writing. So another poem from Mary Oliver from this same book that I've been reading from, New and Selected Poems, The Journey. One day you finally knew what you had to do and began. Though the voices around you kept shouting their bad advice, though the whole house began to tremble and you felt the old tug at your ankles, mend my life, each voice cried, but you didn't stop. You knew what you had to do. Though the wind pried with its stiff fingers at the very foundations, though their melancholy was terrible, it was already late enough, and a wild night, and the road full of fallen branches and stones. But little by little, as you left their voices behind, the stars began to burn through the sheets of clouds, and there was a new voice, which you slowly recognized as your own, that kept you company as you strode deeper and deeper into the world, determined to do the only thing you could do, determined to save the only life you could save. Think about that. And thank you, Mary Oliver. Oh, Margaret's telling us now that the song is Soul on Fire, and it's by a group called Third Day. Thank you, Margaret, for telling us that. Did I just call you Mary? I'm sorry. Mary Oliver is the poet. Margaret Aranda is the participant, telling us that she is inspired by the song Soul on Fire by Third Day. Thank you, Margaret. And my third poetry reading, last one for today, is still by Mary Oliver, and it's called In Blackwater Woods. And this is especially poignant right now because the people in Northern California and Northern Utah and Southern California and lots of other places around the world right now are suffering greatly from forest fires and wildfires. And it is so frightening and so horrifying to see how much acreage is being eaten up. Now, some of it needs to happen. Obviously, there is a cycle, as you know, anything about forestry, that has to include fire on a regular basis. But when it goes as fast and as furious as it goes and takes over so many acres and goes over places that have already been on fire and because of the drought are so hard to fight, these fires are incredibly, incredibly sad. So in Blackwater Woods, look, the trees are turning their own bodies into pillars of light, are giving off the rich fragrance of cinnamon and fulfillment. The long tapers of cattails are bursting and floating away over the blue shoulders of the ponds. And every pond, no matter what its name is nameless now. Every year, everything I have ever learned in my lifetime leads back to this: the fires and the black river of loss, whose other side is salvation, whose meaning none of us will ever know. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it, and when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. Thank you, Mary, for all of your inspiration, all of your time and effort put into making it into poetry, because obviously we can all talk about these topics and we would have endless ways to present them musically, artistically, in writing of all kinds, in plays and songs and in conversations. But for a poet to take these concepts, these thoughts, and put them into such precise and often very concise language, sometimes that rhymes, and that has incredibly intricate and intentional rhythm. I have awe for the people who have those skills and have honed them to such a degree that they can create these pieces and put their emotional and spiritual and contemplative and intellectual world into that form. I think that is an incredible thing to do, to be a poet, and I give a lot of applause and a lot of appreciation to poets who have inspired me my entire life. My mom introduced me to poetry through Robert Louis Stevenson and through nursery rhymes, and I think a lot of us started out learning poetry in sing-song fashion, and then Dr. Seuss, of course, with his rhyming stories, and moving into other songs and other kinds of poetry through our lives. And I'm sure all of us have tried to write it at various points, either through being assigned it in school or being inspired, or both. I started writing poetry when I was very young, and I'm sure a lot of it was crud, but I keep writing it because part of the reason I write poetry and song lyrics and a lot of the things I write is just to express myself, just to put myself into a different frame of mind and see what I think, see what I feel, not just talk about it, not just think about it, putting it out into a form, whether it's an artistic graphic form, a three-dimensional form, a musical form, a form with words, gives us a different perspective, doesn't it? Because then it's outside of us and we look at it and we feel it, or we listen to it. We see it differently. We experience it differently when that emotion, that experience is outside of us. And I know that I've gotten a very different perspective on my life, on myself, on my circumstances, on other people, on relationships, on jobs, on almost anything that I'm trying to work out in my mind by taking it out of the abstract and making it into something more concrete. I think it's also important to consider that when we write fiction, which is what I've been writing lately in the Spanish series, and I know that a lot of people have been inspired by science fiction all our lives. even if you didn't know that you were inspired by science fiction, because many of us heard stories like The Little Prince, or we read books a long time ago that included trips to Mars or trips to outer space in other ways, or fantasy and fairy tales. Those are all parts of the speculative fiction genre. Margaret is giving us another reminder that she heard Twinkle Twinkle Little Star was written by Mozart when he was only 7 years old. I'm not sure Mozart wrote Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, or that he wrote it when he was 7 years old. That sounds a little bit like an urban legend, but he did start writing sonatas, which is really much more complicated and difficult, on the piano when he was under 7 years old. So if you don't believe in reincarnation, go read up on the life of Mozart and then tell me that you don't believe in reincarnation, because what he accomplished at such a young age is impossible to explain any other way. That is my personal opinion, and many others as well. But thank you, Margaret, for bringing that up. And anyone else who has questions or comments, please feel free to put them in the comment stream on the YouTube page or on the Google Plus event page. Because of our wonderful double bubble green comment tracker, I can see them. Within a minute or so of your writing them, I will see them and I will respond to them. In the meantime, I would like to offer you a little bit of a glimpse into the writing that I've been doing and have already done. Some of you have heard and seen the YouTube videos I've made of one chapter I read from book 1, This Changes Everything, volume 1 of the Spanner series. I've also read from another chapter in that series, but I haven't read, that volume, but I haven't read from volumes 2 or 3 or 4 on video yet. And so I'd like to do that right now, because I haven't done it yet. And I'm going to read a little bit from chapter 1 of volume 3, which is the one that's with beta readers right now. I'm also going to read from chapter 9 in volume 2, which is already released, and it came out a year ago in June. Now, the interesting part about this chapter in volume 2, which is called This Changes My Family and My Life Forever, is that it is told from the point of view of a different character than the main character. Our main character in the series is Dr. Clara Ackerman Brannon, who's a PhD that is about my age, very coincidentally. And she has been selected in the first volume, and then throughout the volumes lives out her term as the chief communicator, the liaison for Earth between all the beings who live on Earth and the Many Worlds Collective, which is a collection of beings who operate the intergalactic authority that works through all the planets and orbs that have any inhabitants at all throughout the multiverse. So the first day that she meets the band is a very big deal, and that's the first chapter in the first book that I already have a YouTube video of me reading out loud. If you want to see it and watch it, it's on my YouTube channel. Sally Sue Ember is how you find it, under the Spanner series playlist. This chapter is from her chief media contact, Esperanza Enlaces, half Brazilian, half Mexican, in her 30s at the time that she meets Clara. Clara selects her to be her chief media contact after being told she needs to have one. And Esperanza Enlaces first meets with Clara and doesn't think Clara is serious, and Clara lets her think that it's not serious. She lets her think she's writing fiction books and that she's just asking Esperanza, what if, as a journalist, what if this happened? How would a journalist handle it? Would you come out and show me so I could write about it? And that's how she kind of lures Espy, which is her nickname, out to her cabin to meet the holograms that are the Many Worlds Collective representatives. And so Espy is writing this chapter now in book 2, having been with Clara now for over 2 years and knowing everything that's going on. She's now writing it in retrospect. And chapter 9 is called Esperanza Enlaces, Chief Media Contact for Dr. Clara Ackerman Brannon, PhD, Chief Communicator, and it's called My Transformations During the Transition. Kairos is the Greek word for the perfect moment, a non-chronological time experience that is the most opportune of all moments. Serendipity, fluke, luck, karma, synchronicity, coincidence, these all combine and influence Kairos for me, and are the ways I think about my being contacted by Clara Brannon in 2012. My meeting her and being selected to be the chief media contact changed me and my life forever. Clara tells me that she steals that phrase for the title of this volume in the Spanner series, but since I give her permission, it's not a theft. It's the least I can do after all she gives me. If you are following this series, you already know about our first meetings with her pretending to be writing fiction books and wanting to base the character of the journalist in it on me, asking for my opinion, life details, and editing comments. These ruses are clever. It is not until I show up at her little cottage in Kirov on that fateful January 3rd, 2013, and meet the band that I realize she is not writing fiction. People clamor for me to tell my close encounter of the first kind story often. We decide not to put it into volume 1 for many reasons. So here it is, in my words, in this volume. Espy's first close encounter of the third kind. Hi, Espy, Clara calls out to me. I slow down as I pass her porch. Cute place. I like the feel of it. There's a cemetery next door behind the fence I'm driving along. I drive past vineyards and apple orchards all along this road. Redwoods line the driveway. Behind her house is a larger house, must belong to the landowners, like this huge black dog that won't stop barking. Clara stands on her porch waving to me. She must hear the dog. I roll down my window to hear what she's saying. Banjo won't hurt you. You can ignore him. He only barks. If you try to go over to him, he runs away. Good to know. I'm not keen on dogs. I nod. Park over there and bring your stuff in. Or you can unload here, park there, and then come back. Your choice. You just can't leave your car here since my neighbor can't get by you. Claire seems nervous and kind of excited. Over-explaining. Interesting. Hi, I reply. Okay. Big black barking dog, not dangerous. I hear you. I will unload here, I say, since I have a lot of stuff to carry. At this point, I believe I'm doing a dry run, meaning I think Clara's book is all fiction. But as promised, I have everything I would need for a video shoot, and I plan to bring it all in, set it all up, and talk Clara through what's involved. Clara turns around and moves back into the house to say something I can't hear. Then she comes back outside to help me unload. We put my equipment back on the porch, and Banjo runs away, exactly as Clara predicts. Excellent. Last thing I need is for that dog to pee on my camera case or mic stand. As we're unloading my car, I take a closer look at Clara. She has shrunk a lot. I haven't seen her since March, and it's now December. So I ask her, have you lost a lot of weight or something? Are you okay? I'm great now. I was kind of sick, digestive problems, nothing serious, but I have lost about 70 pounds. Need to lose about 60 more. On my way. Thanks for noticing. Clara smiles at me, and I smile back. She's so freaking cheerful all the time. It's contagious. Oh, good. I'm glad you're all right. I make a point of not commenting on anyone's weight except as a health thing. Judging a person's appearance based on weight is a pet peeve of mine. Facts, fine. Meanness, not. We finish unloading, and she says, I'll start taking in the lighter things, and you go park. See you in a minute. She picks up my mic stand and goes inside. Okay, I agree. I move my car to the parking area and walk back to the cottage. The air smells so sweet out here. It rained yesterday, and the dampness makes the piney scent stronger. I love the redwoods. I should live in a place like this. Then I laugh to myself. I'd be bored in about 10 minutes. I hear Clara talking as I step onto the porch. Who's she talking to? Is she on the phone? I stand outside the screen door and peer in, not wanting to intrude. Maybe she doesn't live alone. I see Clara standing toward the back of the main area in the doorway to a back room talking. I hear her say, You stay here till I introduce you, all right? Who else is here? I knock. Clara, should I come in? Clara turns around and waves me in. Yes, yes, come in, Esperanza. Call me Espy, I tell her as I enter. Only my grandmother calls me Esperanza. I walk all the way in and look around. I don't see or hear anyone else. Her house is small, but not cluttered. I like it. Futon couch with a quilt covering it, old spinet piano and bench, comfy chair and heater in the living room area, very old TV on top of the piano, facing the couch and chair, large round dining table and its chairs, bookshelves in the dining area, opens into the kitchen, which has an old yellow formica table and one chair, plus the normal counters and appliances, a few Buddhist-looking fabric artwork pieces and script things, as well as some frame pieces that look as if they're hand-painted pieces from Japan and Australia. They're on the white walls. Some photos, a guy about her age with long hair, a younger guy with a woman, her with two women that look like her, probably sisters, the Dalai Lama with a rabbi touching foreheads. Must be her son with the woman. Who's the other guy? Boyfriend? Nice place, I say, and mean it. Feels good in here. Thanks, Clara replies, looking more nervous. Do you want anything to drink or eat? Some water would be great, I answer. I have to remember to drink more water. She goes into the kitchen area and gets me a glass of water. Where should I set up? I ask as she hands me the water. Oh, right. Clara looks flustered and glances toward the back room. Well, that's the thing, she begins. Remember how I say I'm writing a novel about the aliens coming to visit the main character and all that? Of course, I answered, drinking the water down. She must have a well. It tastes great right out of the tap. I remember. You told me I'm your model for a character who acts as her media person, and you wanted me to help you figure out how to write about the first time the journalist comes to meet the aliens and videos them. Isn't that why I'm here? Clara nods vigorously. Why is she so hyped up? Espy, yes, you're right. That is the reason I give for you coming here. But I'm not yet completely, honest about that. There's more to it than that. I actually have a need for you to take some videos today, and not just for practice. My stomach flutters. This should be interesting. I put down my empty glass on her dining room table and turn to the back room. Does your not being honest have something to do with whoever's in the back room? Clara seems surprised, then recovers quickly. Oh, of course, you're a journalist. You notice things. So who else is here? I ask. I'm all curious now. Come out, wherever you are. I raise my sing-song voice to whoever is in there so they can hear me. Is this some kind of competition and we have to prove who's better? I joke. Like Media Idol? No, nothing like that, Clara says, laughing uneasily. You already have the position if you want the job. Job? What job? I'm perplexed now, feeling a little impatient. Who is back there? Clara puts out her hands flat in front of her as if to stop me, but I'm not moving. Wait, she says, just listen first. I'm listening, I say, but I don't like an unseen audience. I promise you'll meet them in a minute. May I explain? Clara asks. Please, sit down. She points to the chairs at the table. She takes one and I take the other. Okay, explain. But it's kind of creepy to have people in the next room I don't know and I haven't met. Yes, sorry about that. Soon you'll meet. Clara runs her fingers through her curly hair and tousles it absent-mindedly, composing her words. I'm not actually writing a novel. Well, I am, but it's not all fiction. It's called fiction, but most of it is not exactly fiction. What in the world could be not all fiction in a book about aliens? Are you trying to tell me you're writing a non-fiction book about aliens? I grab most of my long wavy brown hair and wind it into a knot out of my way, as I always do before using my camera. Clara's watching me attentively. I return the scrutiny, checking for signs of her being high, drunk, psychotic. I don't see any, just nervousness. She nods as if she appreciates that I have to check her out. I try again. What do you mean, not exactly fiction? Give her a chance. If I don't like what she says, I can leave. I mean, she licks her lips, pauses, takes a deep breath and plunges in. The aliens are here, in my house, today. Well, their holograms are, not them physically, but the holos are here, in my back room, temporarily. That's what I want you to video. Do you want to meet them now? She says it all in a rush as if she's afraid she'll lose her nerve if she pauses. I can see why she'd be nervous about that. She's got to be kidding. But I'll play along. Why not? What's the harm? Sure. I'd love to meet your aliens. Bring them out. I crane my neck around her to see the back room's doorway better, and I don't see anything but her furniture and the walls. Are they invisible to anyone but you? I ask, proud that I'm hiding my skepticism so well. Clara turns toward the doorway and says, Led, come on out. The rest of you too, please. I feel a little sorry for her when nothing happens. Who should I call to have this woman checked out? I wonder if I can find out how to reach her son. I'm running scenarios in my mind. My asking for his contact information, getting him on the phone, explaining. I really don't want to have to do all that. Suddenly, as I'm daydreaming about calling this guy, I don't even know how to tell him his mother's gone over the edge. I see movement in the back room's doorway. Must be a trick of the light. No, real movement. Yes. A floating, hovering, ball-like thing comes drifting out of the room toward us. I can see through this tiny blimp, but it's kind of bluish gray. ¡Qué demonios! What demons are these in Spanish? I look around for hidden projectors, computers. I don't see anything that can produce this effect. Before I have more time to consider how Clara has arranged this trick, more forms come drifting out of the doorway, moving oddly, all different colors, shapes, and sizes. I'm going to stop there. See, now don't you want to hear more? If you've been listening up to this point, I think you might have gotten a little bit like, what's going on? And if you haven't read volume 1, you really don't know what's going on. So I very much encourage you to get volume 1. This Changes Everything, which is a free ebook. You can get it on Amazon and Smashwords and Nook and iBooks and Kobo and everywhere else that has free ebooks. There are probably dozens or hundreds of places by now. Everything you might want and more besides are on my website. So I'm going to show that to you and everybody else that's watching right now, because that's what I like to do when I'm on this show. But first I have to make it work. So let's see if I can do that. Sometimes the screen share wants to work and sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes it crashes my computer. So I hope it does not crash it today, because that would really be a bummer. And I'm hoping that it's going to work correctly. And it's going to show you my website on WordPress.com, which is called Sally Ember EDD. I know it's not very, interesting or exciting, but it is the name of it. Very obvious. And it has a lot going on, many different pages or tabs as they call them. This is the About page, and it lets you see me and the logo made by Idana Willow-Raven for the Spanners series. And the first cover, This Changes Everything, with the aliens. You can see the little bluish gray ball lead, and then you can see Mick, the tall blue one, and Ringo is the orangey one, and the 2 green ones are Janice and Diana. They all pick names of rock stars because we couldn't pronounce their names in their own languages. And Clara is sitting there. They're all in her bedroom the first time they visit her in book 1. And now book 2 that I was just reading from has Clara and her nephew Moran Ackerman sitting on her couch learning how to levitate books. This changes my family and my life forever. They're working on their telekinesis, one of the excellent skills that they learn in the side training programs. And so I have the blurbs for the books, and the links are all over on the right. You can see all these links, and then you can find whatever you want. There's my logo for the Changes Conversations Between Authors show, and I'm going to scroll up now and show you that there's a tab for the Spanner series, one for my guest bloggers, and another one for Changes. So when you go to my Changes tab, which may or may not work here, it goes very slowly when I'm on a Hangout. When you go to the Changes tab, it gives you all the different informational pieces you would need to be on the show. And it also tells you who's going to be on the show, a little bit about them. It gives their website. And then once the show is about a week in calendar time, about a week before it happens, you can get the URLs for each show, and you can see the photograph that the author has given me to post. So for example, here my next 2 authors are, this is MP McVie, or McVeigh, I'm not sure how he says it. He's another science fiction writer. He's going to be on next week. And then you can see my dear friend Mario Casa, who's going to be on the first week in September. And then after that, you can see that I have Bokera Brumley coming later in September. And then I have openings. So if you are interested in being on my show, I really hope you will come on my show, because I would love to have authors, and I would love to have people who are interested in talking about their writing, talking about the topics that their writing includes. Poets, playwrights, screenwriters, all different kinds of fiction and nonfiction writers and bloggers are welcome. You can be a new writer, a seasoned writer, traditionally published, self-published, independently published. I don't care. What I care about is that you're interesting. Don't bore me. I'm interested in lots of topics. If you want to know which ones I like the most, go to my blog, which I just showed you, sallyember.com, and look at my cloud of topics, my clouds of categories. Read some of my posts. I'm very interested in science, especially the multiverse and physics, quantum physics, as well as cosmology and astronomy. I'm also interested in politics and feminism to some degree. I'm interested in social change and social justice. I'm interested in science fiction and speculative fiction in particular. Ursula K. Le Guin is one of my most favorite and influential authors, and Kate Wilhelm and a lot of other writers that I love, and I've posted about them on my Pinterest boards, which you can go to on pinterest.com/sallyember. And before we go too far into the show, and before it's over, I want you to know, and you can see in many parts of my website and other posts I've made, that I'm trying to crowdfund a better audio system for this show, my ebooks to get into print, a lot of other parts of my writing life and work to be funded through patreon.com, patreon.com/sallyember. I even did a little song on there, which is really pretty bad, and I wrote the lyrics myself, speaking of bad poetry. about how I had a concussion, a very severe one, about a year and a half ago, and I'm still recovering, although I'm much better now. But for a long time, I couldn't write at all. I couldn't work. I still can't work at my regular jobs very well, although I think I might be able to very soon. The point I'm making, though, is that I need some financial support, and I help support a lot of other authors. So if you would like to help support me, that would be awesome. $4 or more is the donation I would like, and you can get a free ebook, Volume 2, or very soon, Volume 3. And you can also get discounts on my editing and writing, tutoring, and other kinds of proofreading assistance, which I offer, that don't cost very much to begin with, but if you are a donor, you get a discount depending on how much you donate. Patreon.com/Sally Ember, Patreon.com. And if you're interested in reading or writing more about the topics that I'm interested in and want to be a guest blogger, go to my Guest Bloggers Hall of Fame tab on my sallyember.com site and read about how to do that and contact me. I always invite my Changes guests to be guest bloggers, and many of them have taken me up on it. In fact, today we have Janet Oakley, who has put up a guest post about her historical fiction writing and the ways that she uses history to educate. And it's a really great post with awesome photos that she included. So please go to my site and read that post and comment on it and let Janet know that you've seen it. I've had a lot of other guests who have already guest blogged, and I have some coming up in the future. So if you'd like to be a guest blogger, please let me know. I have a very good Alexa rating. If anybody's interested, you can go check that out. For someone who's only been blogging for about 2 years or less, and who doesn't really do a lot to gain an audience. I'm also interested in what other people have to say or think about science fiction, speculative fiction, fantasy writing, the role of gender and sexual orientation and social community kinds of issues in these books and short stories. Those are the kinds of topics we talk about on my show and that I'd love people to blog about. And then anything to do with the writing process. I think it's really important for people to talk to each other, write about how we write. I just wrote a post yesterday that a lot of people are interested in that has to do with how I use science research in my science fiction writing. And I do a whole little walk through the tech history, starting with manual typewriters and card catalogs for researchers, and go all the way up to now and show how I use everything I find on the internet and what I do with it for my writing. So you can check that out from yesterday. August 18th is the blog post date for that. So if anybody else has any comments or questions, we have about 15 minutes left. And if we don't get any more from the audience, then I'll probably do another part of a reading from a different volume that is a work in progress. So this part of the writing is now never been heard before and is not out to beta readers. It's from volume 4 of the Spanner series. And I'm sorry, volume 3. This one is out to beta readers. And it is called This Is/Is Not the Way I Want Things to Change. And this is not on any of the current videos that I've made. And this is chapter 1. And it's going to be the source of one of the scenes in this chapter is going to be the source for the cover art that Idana Willow-Raven is currently working on. And I hope to see drafts of it this week. It's called Excellent Skills Program, ESP Final Test, Level 11-A. Clara Brandon, PhD, Chief Communicator, and Warren Ackerman, Chief of Overseers, Covert and Special Ops. And then it explains that Level 11A is Precognition and Postcognition, Stage 2. And improving accuracy and discernment of others' accuracy are what they're being tested on. And this is the final test report to the Intergalactic Council, IGC. And the people doing the reporting are 2 of the alien holos that you just met a few minutes ago, or that you almost met. Led, the one who hovers around in a little blimp shape, and Mick, the really tall, bluish-looking one, turquoise one. They are the assigned trainers from the Many Worlds Collective. And so what I did for this chapter is I put in excerpts from a video transcript and reports from summaries from the final test report. So it starts out with a bracket. Simulation begins. Room appearance shifts to the setting of the exam. They are in a high-ceiling, large room of a rocky cave. It is mostly dark, but some stalactites glimmer above their heads, reflecting light from the cave's entrance. A large pool of water is in front of Clara and Warren, between them and the entrance. There are stalagmites around and in the center of it, some apparently quite large. The way to the entrance seems blocked by them and the water, whose depth is unseen. The stalactites dripping into the pond are the only sounds. Suddenly, the entire cave shudders several times. Rocks fall on Clara and Moran as the roof and walls crack. The pond roils. Some stalagmites crack and tumble down, further blocking the entrance. A few large rocks also fall and roll toward the entrance. A lot less light is visible at the mouth of the cave. Clara and Moran appear, seated on the cave floor in the center. Clara says, "Damn it, Moran, a cave? Why a cave? And during a quake? Are you completely insane?" "It is fine, Aunt Clara. I time-ult our situation and we do great." "Great? Define great." "You can trust me, you know." "Trust is not my strong suit, as you well know." "Noted. But by level 11, I believe you are supposed to be more, well, trusting, at least of me." "I pick a city setting. Fraggers and trenchers attack. We do great in that sim as well. Why do you override my choice?" "Because I can," Moran says. "No, seriously, because this one is better, I promise. We ace it, for sure." "Look out!" Clara shouts. Whoa, another earthquake. He stands up to protect Clara from falling rocks. She stands up to push Moran away from the center toward the wall. "Closer to the wall is safer. Come on." Outside the cave's mouth are sounds of shouting, many people running, but none can be seen from where they stand. Clara says, "The trenchers and fraggers can find us here, and then we are trapped. I can feel some of their psi-activated scouts searching for us now. Shield!" "Shield up, thanks," says Moran. "I'm trying to time-ult our way out of here. Can't feel them and time-ult at the same moment yet." Sure, okay." She's breathing hard. "Moran, do you feel them now?" "About 6 or more, I think." "And counting." "Yes, 7. I sense 2 more powerfully. Those are the ones to monitor, setting up surveillance." "Quake's coming again," says Clara. "Not as strong, but several." "How many more?" "I think 3, maybe. I can't tell. You?" "In kissy time." He closes his eyes. "Right." She closes her eyes. 2 more, I think," says Moran. "Each weaker, but creating more damage. We do survive this, CC, though I see many larger cracks occurring, and this entire part of the cave is collapsing. We have to go deeper into it and find another way out." "Absolutely not. I don't see the collapse. Going deeper is going nowhere unless you see another exit. Do you?" "And where are the Psi Scouts? They can capture us as we exit," says Clara. "Maybe. Not sure. Checking." Closes his eyes again. "Well, I'm not going deeper if you're not sure, and I can't time-ult it for myself for whatever reason. I think we can move one of those larger rocks and get out of this way. Get it out of the way. We can get out this way. Use our telekinesis." "No," says Moran. "That pond could be very deep and cold." "How do we get across it? How do we not get bisected by one of those pointy things on the way?" "Stalagmites," Clara says. "Stalagmites try with all their might to reach the stalactites, which hold on to the ceiling with all their might." Can't believe I remember that from 4th grade. "Plus, you can't move squat," says Moran. "Your upper body strength is terrible. You know that." "Desperate times," says Clara. "And TK does not require physical strength. Let's try." "Worth a shot," Moran says. Moran and Clara close their eyes, then open them and point their fingers at the largest rocks, but not the same ones. Moran says, "Aunt Clara, not that one, this one." "Oh, why? This one's blocking it more." Moran says, "Well, that one's closer to the entrance, but it's larger. If we move this one, we can squeeze by and get out. I know we can move this one." "Do you see that, or are you guessing?" asks Clara. "Well, estimating. Can't time-ult anything about that. You try." "Nope," says Clara. "No views." "Let's try the smaller one then," says Moran. "Okay," says Clara. The entire cave shudders again. More falling rocks. They cling to the wall. Moran is covering Clara's head with one arm and his own with the other. Larger rocks roll over the entrance, almost completely blocking it. Smaller rock near it cracks and falls apart. More shouting and running from outside the cave. Moran says, "I can't precog the rest of this for love or money. What is my problem? Can't feel the Psi Scouts again." Clara says, "When we use our TK for something so large, all the other excellent skills are temporarily blocked." That happens to me frequently in difficult assignments. She starts coughing. Uh-oh, gas, probably CO2. Moran asks, how do you know? Clara says, no odor. The other poisonous gases in the caves would stink and burn our eyes. This one doesn't. We're lucky it's not ammonia, sulfur dioxide, or methane. Moran's coughing now. Great. Clear eyes, but I can't breathe. Less oxygen, more CO2. What now? And that's where I'm going to stop. Because you're supposed to stop on cliffhangers. That's how it works. Are they going to get out of the cave? Are they going to pass the test? Well, you'll just have to get book 2 to find out. It's the very first chapter. So you can actually do a peek inside on Amazon or Smashwords, and you get to read parts of both books or any books I put up there for free to see if you would like them. Which, by the way, kind of begs the question, why do more people not use that before they decide to download a book, and especially before they decide to review it? Some people have decided that they want to review my books, which I really appreciate. Thank you, all reviewers, all readers, very much. But then someone who decides to review my book clearly hasn't read the blurb, clearly hasn't used the peek inside to see if they would like the book. And then when they get into it a little bit, they write me these really weird comments like, too much going on, I couldn't get into it, or this book sucks, I can't finish it, I can't even read past page 13 or whatever they're on. And I think, you know what? You didn't have to try to write a review of a book that you barely read, that you clearly aren't going to like. Nobody needs you to do that. Go read a book you like. Go review a book you finish. That's what I wish reviewers would do, and don't waste your time or our time with these things that aren't really reviews. They're just your weird comments on a partial reading that you didn't have to do. I wish you wouldn't. Okay, that's my little rant about reviews and reviewers. Anybody else have any comments, have any questions? I was kind of wishing for a little more participation today, but not seeing it. So in the absence of any other comments or questions, I was thinking that I would let you know a few more things that are coming up for me that you might be interested in. In September and October, I'm going to be finishing the last edits and revisions on volume 3. This is / is not the way I want things to change, from which I just read part of chapter 1 about the cave with Clara and Moran. And then I will be sending it off to the ebook publication Meat Grinder on Smashwords near the end of October to make sure it passes. And then once it passes and is ready for being put into the EPUB, .mobi, Nook, and iBooks formats, I will be putting it up for pre-order starting November 1st, 2015. The cover reveal, hopefully, is going to happen on October 26th. And Alicia Escobar is so kind to offer her blog for this amazing moment from Idonna Willowraven's Great Artistry. And it is going to be at aliciaescobar.com. And I will be posting about that before October 26th. So November 1st through December 7th will be the pre-order weeks, and it will be at half price, $1.99. Then you will have the chance to purchase it at the regular price of $3.99 when it goes on full release on December 8th, which is the birthday of my dear friend Mario Casa, who's going to be on the Changes Conversations Between Authors show on September 2nd. See how all that rolls together so neatly? So that's happening. And then the other thing that's happening is I'm very hard at work on volume 4, which is called Changes in Attitude, Changes in Latitude. And I'm involved in this amazing writing challenge that was started by some of my favorite writers on Facebook in a group called Fantasy and Science Fiction.net. And we have all been competing with each other in a very friendly way, egging each other on, inspiring and catalyzing each other since June. And we had one challenge that ended that was just for a month. And now we're doing 3-month challenges that they started in July. And so far, yours truly is ahead. I've written more words than anybody else who's posted. Doesn't mean they're better, just means more. But it's been very inspiring and very encouraging to have that, posting your own word count every day, knowing everybody else is posting one, putting it all in a spreadsheet. You could see how everybody else is doing. And then last time they gave these little awards for who had the most days in a row and who had the most words in a day and who had the most total words and things like that. So I think it's really inspiring and supportive. And thank you, fantasyandsciencefiction.net writers and readers and participants in that group on Facebook. I'm also very happy to be part of a group called Clean Indie Reads, which is also a group from Facebook and has its own website, as does fantasyandsciencefiction.net, FSF.net. And CIR4U are the Twitter handles for the number 4. And then you can find cleanindiereads.com, their website. I'm proud to say that my books are clean, which means they don't go into overt sex, graphic violence, lots of swearing, or any other inappropriate for kids under the age of 13. But my books are PG-13. They're not for little kids. And I think actually a lot of teenagers would like them very much. Some of the characters are kids and teenagers, especially in my even-numbered books. And I've written a lot about what I'm doing with my crowd creating for volumes 8 and 9 and how I want to involve other writers on the event page here and in each of my books, in the end matter of each of my books, and on my blog. So if you'd like to be a part of the writing of the Spanish series, please let me know and follow what it says to do for those. And I'm also interested in hearing back from people who have read my books, even if you don't want to write a review, because my volume 10 is going to be a compilation of people's comments, questions, requests. Please tell us more about this. Why didn't you finish that chapter and left us hanging? What's really going on with that character or that relationship? All those kinds of things. By the end of volume 9, you may have things that I didn't do that you wish I would do as an author. And volume 10 is going to be my response to those requests and questions. So please start sending them in so I'll have something to respond to. I also want to let people know that Michael P. McVey, or McVey, MCVEY, is going to be my guest next week on Changes Conversation Between Authors, August 26th. 10 o'clock Eastern Time, USA, live show just like today, and then archived on YouTube. You want to find out anything more about this show, about me, about any of my previous or upcoming guests, beyond my show or guest blog for my site, please go to sallyember.com, SALLYEMBER.com. You'll notice I didn't ask myself the big question that I always ask everybody at quarter of the hour. And that's because I don't want to hear my own answer. Now, some of you might want to hear my answer, but you know, my answer is in my books. And the question I always ask is, given all the local, personal, regional, provincial, statewide, national, global, spiritual, economic, environmental, climatic, scientific and technological, artistic, and any other kinds of changes you can be aware of, which ones arouse in us hope, which ones evoke fear, which ones do I want to talk about? Well, I talk about the changes that I wish would happen and the ones that I'm sorry aren't happening and all the ways I want things to change in my Spanish series. So that's the reason I decided not to ask myself the question here today or to answer it in that format, because I answer it in my books. But I love hearing the answers that my guests give. And I always give them a chance to prepare for that question by putting it in every show. And also in our green room talk, I pose it to them again so they can be incubating their answer as we have our live show. And then I ask them at quarter of the hour. Give them a little 10-minute platform to give their response before we do our closing talk. So looking forward to hearing Michael and Mario and Bokira and all my other upcoming guests. I hope Margaret's going to come on. A lot of other people. My cousin's aunt, Marilyn D. Brown, is an author, and I hope she's going to be coming on. And I have some other people who are in the wings who had to postpone. Angel Chadwick and George Sorois, who was supposed to be on today, couldn't be on, but I hope that these people will reschedule. And then some other people who had to postpone to the fall. I hope you're serious and that you are going to come on this fall. And I'm going to be on Afshan Hashmi's show on October 19th, which is a radio kind of show. That's going to be on at 2 o'clock that day, Central Time. And I'm going to be on, again, Barry Eva's show, A Book and a Chat. He's in the UK, and he's going to have me on November 10th at 3 o'clock Eastern Time. No, I'm sorry, at 6:30 Eastern Time on November 10th. And we're going to be able to talk about my upcoming books and have maybe some reading from Volume 3 and other conversational topics. So if you want to find me, those are ways to find me. I'm very excited to be here with everybody Thank you for watching today or any other day you're watching on YouTube or Google+. Thank you, Margaret Aranda, and anybody else who was live with us and didn't comment or ask questions for being here. And as I say at the end of every show, go well with your changes. Signing off. Bye-bye.